She was sitting alone at the wedding. Then a stranger whispered, "Act like you're with me." Emma's heart stopped. There he was. Jake, her ex-boyfriend of 3 years, walking into the reception hall with his arm wrapped around a woman in a stunning red dress. But it wasn't just any woman. It was Melissa, her former best friend, the same Melissa who'd held Emma while she cried after the breakup 6 months ago. "Please don't come over here. Please don't," Emma whispered to herself, but it was too late. Jake's eyes found hers across the room. He smirked and started walking directly toward her table. That's when she felt the hand on her shoulder. "Act like you're with me," a deep voice whispered in her ear. "Trust me." Before we dive deeper into this beautiful story, I want to know where you're watching from today. Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you're new here, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another story like this one. Emma Chen stared at the elegant calligraphy on the place card in front of her. Table 12, the singles table. Of course. She'd RSVP'd with a +1 3 months ago, back when she and Jake were still together, back when she thought they'd be planning their own wedding by now. Instead, she sat alone in her carefully chosen navy blue dress, watching happy couples sway on the dance floor while she nursed her 3rd glass of champagne. The wedding was beautiful. Sarah and Tom had spared no expense. The historic mansion venue glowed with thousands of fairy lights, white roses and baby's breath adorned every surface. And a live band played soft jazz as guests mingled during the cocktail hour. Emma should have been happy for her college roommate. She was happy. But it was hard to ignore the pitying looks from other guests, the whispered, "Isn't that Jake's ex?" behind manicured hands. She checked her phone again. 7:47 p.m. The reception was in full swing. Dinner would be served soon, and she'd have to make small talk with the other singles at her table. The groom's recently divorced uncle, the bride's perpetually single cousin who collected cats, and a handful of other +1 less guests who'd been corralled together like misfit toys. Emma was contemplating her escape options when the air in the room shifted. She felt it before she saw them, that prickle of awareness that comes when someone you desperately don't want to see enters your space. She looked up, and her heart stopped. Jake walked in looking unfairly handsome in his charcoal grey suit, the one she'd helped him pick out last year. But it wasn't just Jake that made her stomach drop. It was the woman on his arm, Melissa Rodriguez, her former best friend, wearing a stunning red dress that hugged her curves and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes when she spotted Emma. 6 months. It had been 6 months since Emma had walked into Jake's apartment with Chinese takeout and found Melissa's earring on his nightstand. 6 months since her 3-year relationship and 7-year friendship had imploded in a single moment. 6 months of dodging mutual friends' questions and pretending she was totally fine and focusing on herself. "Please don't come over here," Emma whispered to herself, gripping her champagne flute so tightly she feared it might shatter. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. Jake's eyes swept the room and landed on her. She saw the moment of recognition, the flash of something, guilt, satisfaction, before his face settled into that casual smile she'd once loved. He leaned down to whisper something to Melissa, and they began walking directly toward her table. Emma's mind raced. She could run to the bathroom, but that would look cowardly. She could pretend to take an important phone call, but Jake knew her well enough to see through that. She could act like you're with me. The deep voice in her ear made her jump. A warm hand settled gently on her shoulder, and Emma turned to find a stranger sliding into the empty chair beside her. He was tall, with dark hair that was slightly mussed, warm brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and a smile that somehow managed to be both confident and kind. "Trust me," he added quietly, his hand moving from her shoulder to take her hand as naturally as if they'd done this 1,000 times before. Emma's brain short-circuited. What?" But Jake and Melissa had already arrived at their table. "Emma," Jake said, his voice carrying that tone of false concern that made her skin crawl. "I didn't know you were here." The stranger stood smoothly, keeping Emma's hand in his. "Sorry I'm late, sweetheart," he said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "The surgery ran longer than expected. Pediatric cases, you know how it is, can't exactly leave in the middle when you're repairing a 6-year-old's heart valve. He turned to Jake and Melissa with a polite smile, extending his free hand. Daniel Morrison. And you are? Jake's smugness faltered. He shook Daniel's hand, his grip probably tighter than necessary. Jake Williams, Emma's friend. Ex-boyfriend, Emma corrected, finding her voice. The warmth of Daniel's thumb gently stroking the back of her hand gave her courage. And this is Melissa, my former best friend. If the emphasis on former was a little sharp, well, Emma figured she was entitled. Melissa shifted uncomfortably in her designer heels. Emma, I've been meaning to call you. No need, Emma interrupted, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. I've been pretty busy myself. New job, new apartment, new... She glanced at Daniel, who gave her an encouraging smile. New everything, really. You moved? Jake asked, frowning. But you loved that place in Brooklyn. Turns out I love Manhattan more, Emma lied smoothly. She was still in the same studio apartment, but they didn't need to know that. Daniel's penthouse has the most amazing view of Central Park. Daniel picked up her lead seamlessly. She's being modest. She's the one who made it feel like home. Before Emma, it was just a place to crash between shifts. Now, it actually looks like adults live there instead of a college freshman with a trust fund. The easy way he built on her lie, the casual intimacy in his voice. It was so convincing that for a moment, Emma almost believed it herself. Jake's jaw tightened. How long have you two been together? Daniel supplied helpfully. What is it now, sweetheart? 4 months? 4.5, Emma corrected, doing quick mental math. That would mean they'd started dating just 6 weeks after the breakup. Perfect timing to show she'd moved on, but not so fast as to seem like a rebound. Right, 4.5, Daniel agreed, bringing their joined hands up to press a kiss to her knuckles. The gesture was so tender, so natural that Emma's heart skipped. Best 4.5 months of my life. Melissa's perfectly glossed lips pursed. That's fast. When you know, Daniel said simply, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. Sometimes the right person walks into your life exactly when you need them most. An awkward silence stretched between them. Jake seemed to be struggling with what to say next, while Melissa's eyes darted between Emma and Daniel like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Finally, Jake cleared his throat. Well, we should get to our table. We're at table 3 with the wedding party. Of course they were. Jake had always been Tom's favorite cousin, and Melissa had somehow maintained her friendship with Sarah despite everything. Emma forced a smile. Enjoy the salmon. Sarah mentioned it's Tom's grandmother's recipe. After they walked away, Emma exhaled shakily, realizing she'd been holding her breath. Thank you, she said quietly to Daniel. But why did you do that? Daniel's confident facade softened. He released her hand and ran his fingers through his hair, a gesture that made him look younger, more vulnerable. Because I know exactly how you feel. He nodded toward a table near the dance floor, where a stunning blonde woman sat with an older man who looked like he'd stepped out of a luxury car commercial. Everything about him screamed money, from his perfectly tailored tux to the Rolex glinting on his wrist. That's Victoria, my ex, Daniel explained, and her new boyfriend, Richard Worthington III. Yes, that's actually his name, and yes, he insists on using the full thing. She's been staring at me all night, waiting to see me miserable and alone so she can confirm she made the right choice picking money over love. Emma studied his face, noting the tension around his eyes. So you want to use me too? I prefer to think of it as mutual assistance, Daniel said, his smile returning but not quite reaching his eyes. Look, we both need a +1 tonight. We can help each other get through this wedding with our dignity intact. No strings attached. What do you say? Emma glanced across the room where Jake and Melissa were now chatting with other guests, Melissa's hand possessively on Jake's arm. Then she looked at Victoria, who was indeed watching Daniel with the intensity of a hawk eyeing prey. What's our story? Emma asked. Daniel's grin turned genuine. That's my girl. Okay, we met at... Wait, Emma interrupted. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Sit down, Dr. Morrison. We need details. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. They spent the next 10 minutes crafting their fictional relationship with the dedication of screenwriters plotting a romantic comedy. They'd met at a book club. Which book? Emma asked. The Great Gatsby, Daniel decided. We bonded over thinking it was overrated. Their first date was at a hole-in-the-wall Thai place in Queens that Daniel actually knew. They discovered a mutual love of true crime podcasts and terrible reality TV. Emma had a cat named Schrodinger. Daniel had a golden retriever named Bark Ruffalo. Bark Ruffalo? Emma laughed, the first genuine laugh she'd had in weeks. What? It's a great name, Daniel defended. He's very talented. He does all his own stunts. As they talked, Emma found herself relaxing. Daniel was easy to talk to, quick with a joke, but also genuinely interested in making their story believable. He asked about her job, marketing director at a tech startup, her hobbies, yoga and attempting to keep plants alive, her coffee order, oat milk latte with an embarrassing amount of sugar. What about you? Emma asked. Besides the pediatric surgery thing, which I'm assuming is real. It is, Daniel confirmed, though I'm actually a resident, not a full surgeon yet. 2 more years. The hours are brutal, but... He shrugged. There's nothing like saving a kid's life. Makes all the sleepless nights worth it. The sincerity in his voice made Emma's chest tight. That's really amazing. It's really exhausting, Daniel corrected with a self-deprecating smile. Victoria used to say I cared more about my patients than our relationship. She wasn't entirely wrong. I missed a lot of dinners, cancelled a lot of plans. But when you're holding a child's heart in your hands, literally, it's hard to prioritize much else. Before Emma could respond, the wedding coordinator announced that dinner was being served. The other occupants of table 12 began arriving, the divorced uncle who immediately started hitting on Emma despite Daniel's presence, the cat cousin who showed everyone photos of her 6 Persian cats, and a few other singles who seemed relieved to have others to talk to. Daniel played his role perfectly. He kept his arm draped casually over the back of Emma's chair, occasionally playing with a strand of her hair. He made sure her wine glass was never empty, but switched her to water after the second glass with a quiet, "Pace yourself, we've got a long night." He engaged with the other guests, asking the uncle about his golf hobby and admiring the cat photos with what seemed like genuine interest. "Your boyfriend's a keeper," the cat cousin Margaret whispered to Emma when Daniel excused himself to the restroom. "The way he looks at you, that's real love, honey." Emma's stomach fluttered. She wanted to correct Margaret, to explain it was all pretend, but the words stuck in her throat, because the way Daniel looked at her, attentive and warm and just a little bit amazed, didn't feel like acting. When the band started playing and couples began moving to the dance floor, Daniel returned and extended his hand. "May I have this dance?" Emma hesitated. "I should warn you, I'm a terrible dancer." "Perfect. So am I. We'll be terrible together." He led her onto the floor just as the band began playing The Way You Look Tonight. Daniel pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. He smelled like cedar and something clean, medical almost, but not unpleasant. "You're lying," Emma accused as he led her through a perfect box step. "You're a great dancer." "My mom made me take lessons when I was 13, Daniel admitted. "She said it would help with girls. Took me 20 years to prove her right." Emma laughed, relaxing into his hold. Around them, other couples swayed, but Emma found herself focused on the small details. The way Daniel's thumb traced small circles on her waist, the soft hum in his throat as he moved them to the music, the fact that he'd shortened his steps to match hers. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said quietly. "Why were you sitting alone? A woman like you? I can't imagine you couldn't find a date." Emma considered lying, making up some story about her fictional date cancelling. But something about the darkness of the dance floor and the warmth in Daniel's voice made her honest. "I RSVP'd with Jake 3 months ago," she admitted. "We'd been together 3 years. I thought we'd be engaged by now. Instead, I found out he'd been sleeping with my best friend for who knows how long. They're not even trying to hide it now." Daniel's hand tightened on her waist. "I'm sorry. That's awful." "The worst part?" Emma continued, surprising herself with the confession. "I don't even miss him, not really. I miss the idea of him, of us. I miss having someone to come home to, someone who knows how I take my coffee and which side of the bed I prefer. I miss being part of a couple, you know? But Jake himself. The more distance I get, the more I realize we weren't right for each other. He wanted me to be someone I wasn't. Quieter, less ambitious, more willing to put his career first. And Melissa? That's what actually hurts," Emma admitted. "We'd been friends since college. She knew everything about me. She was there for every milestone, every heartbreak. Well, except the one she caused." They danced in silence for a moment before Daniel spoke. "Victoria left me for Richard 3 months ago. We'd been together 2 years. She said I was married to my job, and she needed someone who could give her the life she deserved. Translation: someone who could buy her a house in the Hamptons and didn't work 100-hour weeks. Do you miss her?" Daniel considered this. "I miss having someone too. Coming home to an empty apartment after a 30-hour shift is lonely." But Victoria herself? No. We wanted different things. She wanted charity galas and society pages. I wanted quiet Sunday mornings and someone who understood why I came home covered in finger paint from playing with my patients. The song ended, transitioning into something upbeat. Around them, couples separated for the faster tempo, but Daniel kept Emma close. "Want to know a secret?" he said, his breath warm against her ear. "I wasn't completely honest about why I helped you." Emma pulled back to look at him. "Oh? I mean, yes, Victoria was part of it. But mostly, I saw you sitting there, trying so hard to look okay when you were clearly hurting, and I recognized myself 6 months ago. But more than that," he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "You looked like you were about to cry, and something in me just couldn't let that happen. Not at a wedding. Not because of them." The sincerity in his voice made Emma's eyes water for an entirely different reason. "Thank you," she whispered. "Besides," Daniel added, his tone lightening, "you look too beautiful to be sitting alone. That dress is killer, by the way. Navy's definitely your color." Emma laughed, blinking away the moisture in her eyes. "Smooth recovery, Dr. Morrison. I have my moments." They danced through 2 more songs before returning to their table for the main course. Emma barely tasted the salmon, too aware of Daniel beside her, the easy way he included her in conversations, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed at the uncle's increasingly inappropriate jokes. During the speeches, when Sarah's sister told an embarrassing story about the bride's failed attempts at cooking, Daniel leaned over to whisper commentary in Emma's ear. $5 says Tom does all the cooking in that marriage." "No bet," Emma whispered back. "Sarah once burned water. Literally. I still don't know how." When Tom's best man told the story of how the couple met, a classic meet cute at a coffee shop, Daniel caught Emma's eye. "See? Coffee shop meetings are cliché for a reason," he murmured, making her stifle a giggle. It was during the cake cutting that things shifted. Emma had been laughing at something Daniel said about the cake topper looking constipated when she caught Jake staring at them from across the room. His expression was unreadable, but Melissa beside him looked distinctly unhappy. "Incoming," Daniel murmured, following her gaze. "X at 2 o'clock. But it wasn't Jake who approached. It was Victoria gliding across the floor in her silver gown, like an ice queen approaching her court. Richard was nowhere to be seen. "Daniel," she purred, completely ignoring Emma. "You're looking well." "Victoria," Daniel replied coolly, his hand finding Emma's automatically. "Enjoying the wedding?" "It's lovely, though a bit quaint." Victoria's gaze finally landed on Emma, taking in every detail from her department store dress to her self-manicured nails. "And who's this?" "Emma Chen," Daniel said before Emma could respond. "Emma, this is Victoria Ashford." "His ex," Victoria added, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Though I'm sure he's mentioned me." "Only briefly," Emma said, matching Victoria's fake sweetness. "We've been too busy making new memories to dwell on the past." Victoria's perfect eyebrow arched. "How romantic. Tell me, Emma, what is it you do?" "I'm a marketing director at a tech startup," Emma replied. "How modern," Victoria said in a tone that made it clear she thought it was anything but. "Daniel always did have a thing for career women. I suppose someone has to keep themselves busy while he's at the hospital all hours." "Actually, I find Emma's ambition incredibly attractive," Daniel interjected. "It's refreshing to be with someone who has their own goals and doesn't need me to be their entire world." Victoria's smile tightened. "Yes, well, some of us prefer a partner who's actually present. Richard just bought us a house in the Hamptons. Did you know he owns the largest yacht in the marina there?" "That's wonderful," Emma said brightly. "Size really does matter to some people." Daniel choked on his wine. Victoria's face flushed. "At least I'm not playing pretend," Victoria snapped, dropping her facade. "Really, Daniel? Finding another fake girlfriend to make me jealous? First the charity gala with your sister, then the hospital fundraiser with that married colleague, and now this?" Emma felt Daniel tense beside her. "Those weren't—" "Oh, please," Victoria interrupted. "Everyone knows you can't stand to see me happy. But hiring an actress? That's low, even for you." "Hiring?" Emma stood slowly, her voice dangerously quiet. "You think he hired me?" Victoria laughed, a tinkling sound that grated on Emma's nerves. "Sweetheart, I've known Daniel for 3 years. This is what he does. He finds a pretty face to parade around whenever we're at the same event. It's pathetic, really." "Have you ever had someone completely misjudge your relationship? Tell me about it in the comments." Emma felt a surge of protective anger. "You know what's pathetic? A woman who measures her worth by her boyfriend's bank account and yacht size. You had a good man who saves children's lives, who stays up for 30-hour shifts to help others, and you threw him away because he couldn't buy you a house in the Hamptons fast enough." "You don't know anything about our relationship," Victoria hissed. "I know enough," Emma shot back. "I know you wanted him to choose between his calling and you. I know you made him feel guilty for caring about his patients. I know you're here with Richard III, not because you love him, but because he can give you the lifestyle you think you deserve. And I know that deep down you're terrified you made the wrong choice, which is why you're over here trying to convince yourself that what Daniel and I have isn't real." "And what exactly do you have?" Victoria challenged. "A few months of playing house before he chooses the hospital over you too?" Emma smiled, a real smile this time. "What we have is none of your business. But I'll tell you what we don't have. A relationship built on ultimatums and conditions. When Daniel talks about his work, his eyes light up. When he tells me about saving a child's life, I feel proud, not jealous. That's the difference between us, Victoria. You saw his dedication as competition. I see it as one of the things that makes him extraordinary." Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it, clearly not expecting such a response. Finally, she turned on her designer heel and stalked away. Emma sank back into her chair, her hands shaking slightly. "I'm sorry," she said to Daniel. "That was probably too much. That was perfect," Daniel interrupted, his voice rough with emotion. "No one's ever defended me like that before." "Yeah, well," Emma said, suddenly feeling shy. "She pissed me off. Acting like caring about sick children is some character flaw." Daniel stared at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his eyes. Then he stood, extending his hand. "Come on, let's get some air. He led her out to the garden, where fairy lights twinkled in the trees and the sound of the party became muffled. The October air was crisp, and Emma shivered slightly in her sleeveless dress. Without a word, Daniel shrugged off his suit jacket and draped it around her shoulders. "Thank you," Emma said softly, "for tonight, for all of it. I know I probably ruined your plan by going off on your ex like that." "Emma," Daniel interrupted, "I need to tell you something." Her heart sank. Here it was, the part where he reminded her this was all fake, that she'd overstepped, that Victoria was lying, he said, about the other events. My sister really was my date to the charity gala because Victoria had been telling everyone I was pining for her. I wanted to show up with someone who wouldn't give her any ammunition. And the hospital fundraiser, Dr. Patricia Chen, no relation to you, her wife had the flu. Pat's 63 and has been married for 30 years. I was just helping a colleague out. Oh, Emma said, relief flooding through her. But she wasn't wrong about one thing, Daniel continued. I did ask you to pretend with me tonight, and I should apologize for that, for dragging you into my drama. You didn't drag me, Emma protested. You saved me. If you hadn't shown up when you did, you would have handled it, Daniel said with certainty. The way you handled Victoria just now, you didn't need me. You're stronger than you think. They stood in comfortable silence, the garden peaceful around them. Emma became aware that she was still wearing Daniel's jacket, that it smelled like him, that she didn't want to give it back. Can I ask you something? She said finally. Anything. That stuff you said in there, about my ambition being attractive and wanting someone with their own goals, was that real or just part of the act? Daniel turned to face her fully. It was real, all of it. The way you talked about your work earlier, your eyes lit up the same way mine do when I talk about surgery. You have passion, drive. You're not looking for someone to complete you because you're already whole. Do you know how rare that is? Emma's breath caught. Daniel, I know we just met, he said quickly. I know this whole thing is crazy. But Emma, I haven't felt this comfortable with someone in, maybe ever. The way we just click, the way you make me laugh, the way you stood up to Victoria without even hesitating. I feel it too, Emma admitted, which is insane, right? We've known each other for what, 3 hours? 3 hours and 17 minutes, Daniel corrected with a small smile. But who's counting? They were standing closer now, drawn together like magnets. Emma could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, could count his eyelashes if she wanted to. This is probably a bad idea, she whispered. Probably, he agreed, but he was leaning in too. Just before their lips met, a burst of laughter from the reception made them spring apart. A group of bridesmaids had spilled out onto the patio, giggling and taking selfies. We should get back, Emma said, though every part of her wanted to stay in this garden, in this moment. Yeah, Daniel agreed, but he caught her hand as they walked back. Emma, whatever this is, I'd like to find out. For real. No pretending. She squeezed his hand. I'd like that too. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. They danced to every slow song, Daniel spinning her and dipping her dramatically during Fly Me to the Moon, making her laugh so hard she nearly cried. They participated in the wedding games, winning the couple's trivia despite having to make up all their answers. They shared a piece of wedding cake, Daniel insisting on feeding her a bite just to make her laugh. You have frosting on your nose, he informed her after. No, I don't, Emma protested, but she wiped at it anyway. You're right, you don't, he grinned. But you checked, which means you trust me. That's important in a relationship. You're ridiculous, Emma laughed. Ridiculously charming, he corrected. Get it right, girlfriend. The word sent a thrill through her, even though she knew it was still part of their act. Or was it? The lines had blurred so much, Emma wasn't sure what was real anymore. As the night wore on, Emma noticed Jake and Melissa watching them more and more. During the bouquet toss, Emma tried to stay at the back of the crowd, but Margaret, the cat cousin, pushed her forward. Go on, dear. Maybe you'll be next. The bouquet sailed through the air in a perfect arc, heading straight for Emma. She tried to step aside, but the other women seemed to part like the Red Sea and the flowers landed squarely in her hands. The crowd erupted in cheers, but one voice cut through the noise. Look at that, Jake said, his voice carrying in that way it did when he'd had too much to drink. Emma caught the bouquet. Too bad it doesn't mean anything when you can't keep a man. The music scratched to a stop. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Emma felt her face burn. This was it, the moment she'd dreaded all night. The public humiliation, the confirmation that she was the pathetic ex who couldn't move on. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Then Daniel was there, stepping in front of her like a shield. I'm sorry, he said, his voice carrying clearly across the silent room. What was that? Jake, emboldened by alcohol and an audience, smirked. Just saying. Emma's not exactly relationship material. Too focused on her career, too independent, too... Perfect, Daniel interrupted. The word you're looking for is perfect. He turned to face Emma, taking the bouquet from her trembling hands and setting it aside before taking both her hands in his. Emma, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, but looking only at her. I know we said we'd keep things low-key tonight, but I can't stand here and let anyone disrespect the most incredible woman I've ever met. Daniel, Emma whispered, you don't have to. Yes, I do, he said firmly, because someone needs to say it. You want to know what kind of person Emma is? She's the kind who remembers the waiter's name and asks about his kids. She's the kind who helps fix a flower girl's crown without being asked. She's the kind who defends someone she barely knows because it's the right thing to do. His voice grew stronger, more passionate. She's brilliant and funny and kind. She has this laugh that makes everyone around her want to laugh too. She cares about her work because she's good at it, because she makes a difference. She's independent because she's strong, not because she doesn't need anyone. And if some people are too insecure to handle that, that's their loss. Subscribe now if you believe in standing up for the people you care about. The room was completely silent. Emma's eyes filled with tears. You want to know the truth? Daniel continued, now addressing Jake directly. You didn't deserve her. You had 3 years with this amazing woman and you threw it away. And for what? Because she wouldn't dim her light to make you feel brighter? Because she had dreams that didn't revolve around you? He turned back to Emma. I've known you for 3 hours, and I can already see what he was too blind to notice. You're not too anything, you're exactly right, exactly as you are. And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve a minute of your time. Emma couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. The room erupted in applause. Someone, probably Margaret, actually whooped. Jake's face had turned an alarming shade of red, and Melissa was tugging at his arm, trying to get him to leave. Come on, Daniel said softly, just for her. Let's get out of here. He led her through the crowd, people parting for them, many reaching out to pat Emma's shoulder or whisper words of support. They didn't stop until they were outside in the parking lot, the cool night air a relief after the stuffiness of the reception. I'm sorry, Daniel said immediately. I know that was probably too much. The way he talked to you, I couldn't just stand there and... Emma silenced him by throwing her arms around his neck and kissing him. It wasn't a perfect movie kiss. Their noses bumped and Emma was pretty sure she was crying, and they were standing in a parking lot next to someone's minivan. But it was real and honest, and everything their pretend relationship hadn't been. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. So, he said softly, was that real? Or are we still pretending? That was the most real thing I've felt in months, Emma admitted. Oh, thank God, Daniel breathed, and kissed her again. This time it was softer, sweeter, a promise rather than a declaration. When they separated, Emma realized she was still wearing his jacket. We should probably go back in, she said without much conviction. Or, Daniel suggested, we could get out of here. I know a 24-hour diner that makes the best milkshakes in the city. We could talk, get to know each other for real this time. Our first real date, Emma asked with a smile, if you'll have me. The real me, not the pretend boyfriend version, the one who works insane hours and sometimes falls asleep, standing up and has been known to practice sutures on oranges when he's stressed. Only if you'll have the real me, Emma countered, the one who works too much and cries at dog food commercials and has killed every plant she's ever owned, including a cactus. How do you kill a cactus? Daniel asked, laughing. I don't know, that's the mystery. They stood there grinning at each other like idiots until a car pulling out of the lot honked at them to move. So, Daniel asked, milkshakes and real conversation? Yes, Emma said, but first... She pulled out her phone and sent a quick text to Sarah, apologizing for leaving early, but promising to explain everything later. Then she turned the phone off completely. Okay, now I'm all yours. I like the sound of that, Daniel said, taking her hand. As they walked to his car, Emma glanced back at the reception hall, all lit up and beautiful. Through the windows, she could see people dancing, celebrating love. For the first time all night, she didn't feel like she was on the outside looking in. "No regrets?" Daniel asked, following her gaze. "None," Emma said firmly. "Well, maybe one." "What's that?" "I really wanted to see Jake's face when you told him off. That was incredible, by the way. No one's ever stood up for me like that." "Get used to it," Daniel said, opening the car door for her. "I have a feeling I'm going to be standing up for you a lot. Mostly to tell people how amazing you are." "Smooth talker," Emma accused, but she was smiling. "Just honest," Daniel corrected. "Besides, you stood up for me first, with Victoria. That was... No one's ever done that before. Defended my work like that." "Get used to it," Emma echoed. "I have a feeling I'm going to be doing that a lot too." They drove through the city, talking about everything and nothing. Daniel told her about his most memorable patients, the ones who made the exhausting hours worth it. Emma shared her dreams of starting her own marketing firm someday, specializing in helping non-profits expand their reach. "That's amazing," Daniel said, genuinely impressed. "Using your skills to help organizations that make a difference." "Says the man who literally saves children's lives," Emma pointed out. "We're going to have to work on your ability to accept compliments," Daniel noted. "But I'll let it slide this time, since we're still getting to know each other." The diner was exactly as promised, a classic 24-hour spot with cracked vinyl booths, fluorescent lighting, and a waitress who called everyone on. They slid into a corner booth, and Emma finally, reluctantly, gave Daniel his jacket back. "So," Daniel said after they'd ordered milkshakes, chocolate for him, strawberry for her. "Tell me something real. Something you wouldn't have told pretend boyfriend me." Emma considered this. "I'm terrified of ending up alone," she admitted. "Not in a desperate need-a-man way, just I'm scared of being 35 and coming home to an empty apartment every night, 40 and having no one to call when I get good news, 50 and spending holidays with my parents out of obligation rather than choice." "That's not going to happen," Daniel said with such certainty that Emma almost believed him. "You can't know that." "Maybe not," he conceded, "but I know you're the kind of person people gravitate toward. Look at tonight. Margaret the cat lady adopted you within 5 minutes. The flower girl followed you around like a puppy. Even the waitstaff were charmed by you." "That's different," Emma protested. "Is it?" "Emma, you have this warmth about you, this genuineness. People can sense it. The right person, the right people, are going to see that and never want to let you go." Their milkshakes arrived, and Emma took a long sip to avoid tearing up again. "Your turn," she said when she'd composed herself. "Something real." Daniel played with his straw, suddenly looking younger. "I'm terrified I'm becoming my father," he said quietly. He was a surgeon too. Brilliant, dedicated, saved hundreds of lives. Also missed every birthday, every baseball game, every school play. My mum used to joke that she was married to the hospital, except it wasn't really a joke. "Is that why they divorced?" "No, they're still together, 40 years next month. My mum's a saint. But I watched her eat dinner alone more nights than not. Watched her make excuses for his absence. Watched her light dim a little more each year." He looked up at Emma. "I swore I'd never do that to someone. And then Victoria." "Victoria wanted you to be someone you're not," Emma said firmly. "There's a difference between asking for balance and asking someone to give up their calling." "How do you know surgery is my calling?" "Because your whole face changes when you talk about it," Emma said simply. "Like when you mentioned the 6-year-old's heart valve earlier. You get this look, determined and gentle at the same time. It's beautiful." Daniel stared at her. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "See things. See people. See me." Emma shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "I pay attention." "I'm starting to realize that," Daniel said softly. They talked until their milkshakes were empty and refilled, until the late-night crowd gave way to early morning workers grabbing coffee before dawn shifts. Emma learned that Daniel had 2 sisters, both older, both married with kids he adored. that he'd wanted to be a doctor since he was 7 and his younger brother had been in a car accident, that he played piano when he was stressed and had a secret addiction to reality cooking shows. Daniel learned that Emma was an only child who'd always wanted siblings, that she'd switched majors 3 times in college before finding marketing, that she volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends but couldn't adopt a dog because her building didn't allow pets, that she was learning Mandarin to better communicate with her grandmother. "Wait," Daniel said, glancing at his watch. "It's 3 a.m. We've been here for 4 hours." "No way," Emma protested, but her phone confirmed it when she turned it back on. She also had 17 missed calls from Sarah and approximately 1 million text messages. "Oh no," she groaned, scrolling through them. "Sarah thinks I was kidnapped." "What?" "Apparently, Jake and Melissa left right after we did and told everyone I'd run off crying. Sarah's been freaking out." Emma quickly typed out a response, assuring her friend she was fine and would explain everything tomorrow. "I should probably get you home," Daniel said reluctantly. "Probably," Emma agreed, equally reluctant. The drive to her apartment was quiet, both of them seemingly aware that their magical night was ending. Daniel found a parking spot near her building and insisted on walking her to her door. "This is me," Emma said unnecessarily, gesturing to her building. "Fair warning, it's a 5th-floor walk-up." "Good thing I have excellent cardio," Daniel said, but he was slightly winded by the 3rd floor. "Okay, maybe not that excellent." "Surgical residency doesn't include stair training," Emma teased. "Sadly no, though it should." At her door, they stood awkwardly, neither wanting to say goodbye. "Thank you," Emma said finally. "For tonight, for everything, for being my fake boyfriend, and then my real, whatever this is." "I prefer real whatever this is to fake boyfriend," Daniel said with a smile. "Has a nice ring to it." "Daniel." "I know," he said. "This is crazy. We just met. We were pretending half the night. But Emma, I meant what I said in there. Every word. And I know you felt it too. This connection. Tell me I'm not imagining it." "You're not imagining it," Emma confirmed. "I felt it the moment you sat down and took my hand, like I'd been waiting for you without knowing it." Daniel stepped closer, cupping her face gently. "So what do we do now?" "I think," Emma said slowly, "we see where this goes, for real this time. No pretending, no games, just us." "I like that plan," Daniel murmured, and then he was kissing her again, soft and sweet in the dim hallway light. When they finally pulled apart, Emma was dizzy in the best way. "Can I see you tomorrow?" Daniel asked. "Well, today, technically. Later today." "I'd like that," Emma said. "But don't you have to work?" "Not until Monday. Benefits of actually using my vacation days for once." He pulled out his phone. "What's your number? Your real number, not the fake one we made up for our story." They exchanged phones, programming their numbers with shy smiles like teenagers. "I'll call you," Daniel promised. "We can do something normal. Coffee, lunch, a walk in the park. Something that doesn't involve wedding crashers or vengeful exes." "Sounds perfect," Emma said. He kissed her once more, quick and light, then headed for the stairs. "Sweet dreams, Emma Chen." "Sweet dreams, Dr. Morrison." She watched until he disappeared down the stairwell, then let herself into her apartment. It was exactly as she'd left it. Clothes strewn across the bed from trying to decide what to wear, makeup scattered on the bathroom counter, half a glass of wine abandoned on the kitchen table. But everything felt different. She felt different. Emma kicked off her heels and sank onto her couch, still wearing Daniel's jacket that she'd somehow ended up with again. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Daniel, made it to my car. Already miss you. Is that weird?" Emma, "If it's weird, then we're both weird. I miss you too." Daniel, "Good. Want to be weird together?" Emma, "Yes, absolutely yes." She hugged her phone to her chest like a teenager, grinning so hard her cheeks hurt. In a few hours, she'd have to call Sarah and explain everything. She'd have to figure out what to wear for a real date with Daniel. She'd have to process everything that had happened. But for now, Emma just sat in her quiet apartment, wearing a borrowed jacket that smelled like cedar and possibility, thinking about brown eyes and kind hands and the way life could change in an instant. Her phone buzzed again. Daniel. One more thing. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Don't ever change. Emma. Only if you promise the same thing. Daniel. Deal. Now get some sleep. I have big plans for our real first date. Emma. Bigger than crashing a wedding and telling off our exes? Daniel. Well, when you put it that way, I might need to up my game. Emma. Your game is just fine. Perfect, actually. Daniel. There you go, being perfect again. Emma. Smooth talker. Daniel. Only with you. Good night, Emma. Emma. Good night, Daniel. Emma finally made it to bed as the sun was starting to rise, painting her bedroom in soft pink light. She should have been exhausted, but she felt energized, alive in a way she hadn't in months. Her phone rang at noon, waking her from dreams of dancing and fairy lights. Hello? She answered groggily. Oh, thank God, Sarah's voice exploded through the speaker. Emma Chen, you have some explaining to do. Who was that gorgeous man? Where did you disappear to? Why did Jake look like he'd swallowed a lemon? Tell me everything. Emma sat up, rubbing her eyes. It's a long story. I have time. Tom's golfing with his groomsman, Spill. So Emma did. She told Sarah everything. The fake relationship, the real feelings, the confrontations with exes, the milkshakes and conversation until dawn. Oh my God, Sarah breathed when Emma finished. That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard. It's like a movie. It doesn't feel real, Emma admitted. What if I dreamed it all? Did you dream the 15 voicemails I left? No, those were unfortunately real. Sorry about that. Don't apologize. I'm just glad you're okay. More than okay, apparently. Sarah paused. So when do I get to meet him properly? As your real boyfriend this time? Slow down, Emma laughed. We haven't even had our first official date yet. But you will. This afternoon, actually. He's picking me up at 2. Sarah squealed so loudly, Emma had to hold the phone away from her ear. I'm so happy for you. You deserve this, Em. You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are. After they hung up, Emma showered and stood in front of her closet, experiencing déjà vu from the night before. What did one wear on a first date with someone who'd already seen you at your most vulnerable? Her phone buzzed. Daniel, wear something comfortable and maybe bring a jacket. I have plans. Emma, mysterious. I like it. Daniel, also, I may have stayed up researching the best coffee shops in your neighborhood. I'm prepared to cafe hop until we find your perfect oat milk latte. Emma's heart melted a little. She selected jeans, a soft sweater, and comfortable boots. Casual but put together. Real. Daniel arrived promptly at 2, looking unfairly handsome in jeans and a Henley. His face lit up when he saw her. Hi, he said, suddenly shy. Hi, Emma replied, equally bashful. They stood there grinning at each other until Mrs. Patterson from 4B walked by with her groceries, giving them a knowing look. So, Emma said, where are we going? First stop coffee, Daniel said, taking her hand. Then I thought we could walk through Central Park, maybe visit the Met if you're interested. Or we could just wander. I didn't want to overplan. That sounds perfect, Emma said, meaning it. They found a cozy coffee shop 3 blocks from her apartment. Daniel watched with amusement as Emma ordered her complicated latte. Oat milk, extra shot, half-pump vanilla, extra hot, he repeated. Got it. Don't judge me, Emma said. Never. I'm memorizing it for future reference. The casual mention of a future made Emma's stomach flutter. They walked through Central Park, autumn leaves crunching under their feet. Without the pretense of the night before, conversation flowed even more naturally. They debated the merits of various pizza places, discovered a mutual love of obscure documentaries, and argued playfully about whether Die Hard was a Christmas movie. It takes place at Christmas, Emma insisted, therefore Christmas movie. By that logic, Lethal Weapon is also a Christmas movie, Daniel countered. It is. You're impossible, Daniel laughed, pulling her closer as they walked. Impossibly right, Emma corrected. They ended up at the Met, wandering through exhibits hand in hand. Daniel, it turned out, knew a surprising amount about art history. Hidden depths, Dr. Morrison, Emma teased as he explained the symbolism in a Renaissance painting. I took a lot of art history in undergrad, he admitted. Needed something to balance out all the science courses, plus it impressed dates. Is it impressing this date? God, I hope so. Emma stood on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek. Consider me impressed. As the museum was closing, they found themselves back in Central Park, sitting on a bench watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. I have a confession, Daniel said suddenly. Emma's heart skipped. Oh? I almost chickened out last night. Approaching you, I mean. I watched you for like 10 minutes trying to work up the courage. Really? You seemed so confident. Pure adrenaline, Daniel admitted. I saw your ex walking over and just acted. Best impulsive decision I've ever made. Mine too, Emma said softly. Saying yes, I mean. Daniel turned to face her. Emma, I know this is fast. I know we should probably take things slow, be reasonable, all that. But I need you to know, this isn't just a rebound for me. It's not about Victoria or proving something. When I'm with you, I feel like myself. The real version, not the one who's trying to be what someone else wants. I feel the same way, Emma said. With Jake, I was always editing myself, trying to be less ambitious, less independent, less me. With you, I don't feel like I have to be anything but exactly who I am. That's all I want, Daniel said. You, exactly as you are. This time when they kissed, there was no audience, no pretense, no agenda, just two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way. When they finally pulled apart, the sky had darkened to deep purple, and the park lamps were beginning to glow. Dinner, Daniel suggested. I know a place that makes amazing Thai food, unless you're sick of me already. Never, Emma said firmly. Lead the way. As they walked out of the park hand in hand, Emma's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Unknown. This is Melissa. Can we talk? Emma showed Daniel the message. What do you think? I think that's entirely up to you, he said carefully. What do you want to do? Emma considered for a moment, then deleted the message. I want to have dinner with my boyfriend. The rest can wait. Boyfriend? Daniel repeated with a grin. I like the sound of that. Me too, Emma said, though we should probably come up with a better story for how we met. The truth is pretty unbelievable. I don't know, Daniel said, swinging their joined hands. Girl sits alone at wedding. Guy whispers, act like you're with me. They fall in love for real? Sounds like a pretty great story to me. When you put it like that, Emma agreed, it does sound pretty great. The best, Daniel confirmed, pulling her close as they waited for the light to change. Though I have a feeling we're just getting started. Looking up at him in the glow of the streetlights, feeling happier than she had in months, Emma knew he was right. This was just the beginning of their story. And what a story it would be. 6 months later. Emma stood in front of the mirror, smoothing down her dress. A deep emerald green this time, perfect for a spring wedding. You look beautiful, Daniel said from the doorway, already in his suit. You have to say that, Emma teased. You're biologically programmed to find me attractive now. Lucky me, Daniel said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Ready for this? More than ready, Emma said firmly. They were attending another wedding. Daniel's colleague Patricia and her wife were renewing their vows for their 30th anniversary. This time Emma wasn't dreading it. This time she had a real +1, a real relationship, a real partner. I love you, Daniel murmured against her hair. They'd said it for the first time 2 months ago, after Daniel's brutal 36-hour shift when Emma had shown up at the hospital with coffee and a change of clothes. I love you too, Emma replied, turning in his arms. Even if you do leave your socks everywhere and claim pineapple belongs on pizza. It does belong on pizza, Daniel insisted. It does belong on pizza, Daniel insisted. You'll come around eventually. Never, Emma declared, but she kissed him anyway. The wedding was beautiful, intimate, full of joy and laughter. Patricia and her wife Margaret exchanged vows that spoke of 30 years of partnership, of weathering storms and celebrating victories together. Emma found herself tearing up and Daniel squeezed her hand. During the reception, they ran into a familiar face, Margaret, the cat cousin from Sarah's wedding. "Emma! Daniel!" she exclaimed, pulling them both into enthusiastic hugs. "I was hoping you two would be here. Still together, I see. I knew it that night. You two had something special." "You were right," Emma said, smiling up at Daniel, though it took us a minute to figure it out. "The best things usually do," Margaret said wisely. "Oh, I have to show you pictures of my new kitten." As Margaret scrolled through approximately 300 cat photos, Emma caught sight of another familiar face across the room. Victoria, dressed in designer black, standing alone by the bar. Daniel followed her gaze and tensed slightly. "I didn't know she'd be here." "It's okay," Emma said, meaning it. "We're okay." Victoria must have felt their gaze because she looked up, her eyes widening when she saw them. For a moment they all stood frozen. Then Victoria raised her champagne glass in a small salute and turned away. "That was surprisingly mature," Daniel said. "People change," Emma said. "Sometimes for the better." Later, as they swayed together on the dance floor to "At Last," their song now, Daniel pulled back to look at her. "What?" Emma asked. "Just thinking about that first wedding. How terrified you looked when I sat down. How I had no idea my whole life was about to change. If someone had told me that night that I'd fall in love with a stranger who asked me to fake date him, I'd have thought they were crazy," Emma admitted. "And now? Now I think it was fate," Emma said simply. "We were meant to find each other that night. Even if it meant suffering through Jake's speech. Even then," Emma laughed, "though I could have done without that part." "Speaking of Jake," Daniel said carefully, "did you ever respond to Melissa?" Emma had finally told him about the text a few weeks after their first date. "No, I thought about it, but I don't need closure. I don't need explanations or apologies. I have everything I need right here." Daniel spun her out and back, making her laugh. Smooth talker. "Only with you," he said, echoing their first night. "Always with you." The song ended, but they kept swaying, lost in their own world. "Hey," Daniel said suddenly, "what are you doing next Saturday?" "Why?" Emma asked suspiciously. "The last time you had that look, we ended up at that terrible karaoke bar where you sang Don't Stop Believin' and made everyone cry." "They were tears of joy," Daniel protested. "But no, not karaoke. I was thinking, maybe we could look at some apartments. Together." Emma stopped dancing. "Are you asking me to move in with you?" "I'm asking if you want to find a place that's ours," Daniel clarified. "Somewhere that allows dogs, has more than one closet, and is closer to both our jobs. Somewhere we can build a life together." Emma's heart raced. "That's a big step." "I know, but Emma, I'm tired of deciding whose place to sleep at. I want to come home to you every night, not just when our schedules align. I want to cook dinner together and argue about loading the dishwasher wrong and wake up next to you every morning." "You already wake up next to me most mornings," Emma pointed out. "Not enough mornings," Daniel said firmly. "I want them all. Every morning, every night, every moment in between that our crazy jobs allow. What do you say?" Emma thought about the past 6 months, how Daniel had held her hair when she got food poisoning, how she'd quizzed him on medical terms before his boards, how they'd developed a whole language of inside jokes and shared looks, how natural it felt, how right. "I say yes," she said. "Yes to apartment hunting. Yes to arguing about dishwashers. Yes to all of it." Daniel's face lit up like Christmas morning. He picked her up and spun her around, not caring that other couples had to dodge them. "I love you," he said when he set her down. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "Good scared or bad scared?" Emma asked. "The best kind of scared," Daniel assured her. "The kind that means you have something worth losing." "You're not going to lose me," Emma promised. "You're stuck with me now, Dr. Morrison." "Thank God for that," Daniel said, and kissed her right there on the dance floor, not caring who saw. 1 year later, Emma stood in the bridal suite of the same venue where it all began, but this time she was the one in white. "I can't believe you're getting married where you met," Sarah said, fixing Emma's veil. "It's like a fairy tale." "A very weird, modern fairy tale," Emma agreed, "where the princess saves herself and then meets a prince who's terrible at karaoke." "The best kind," Sarah declared. "You ready for this?" Emma looked at herself in the mirror. The dress was simple but elegant, her grandmother's jade bracelet on her wrist, her mother's pearl earrings catching the light. She looked like a bride. More importantly, she looked happy. "I've been ready since the day he stood up for me in front of everyone," Emma said. "Maybe even since the moment he sat down and said, 'Trust me.'" "That was the best man speech I've ever heard, by the way," Sarah said, even if it was technically a fake boyfriend speech at the time. There was a knock at the door, and Emma's mother peeked in. "It's time, sweetheart." Emma took a deep breath. In a few minutes, she'd walk down the aisle to Daniel. Her Daniel, who left socks everywhere but always remembered her coffee order, who worked insane hours but always made time for their Sunday morning walks, who had become not just her partner but her best friend. As she walked down the aisle, Emma saw familiar faces in the crowd, her parents, beaming with pride, Daniel's sisters already crying, Patricia and Margaret from the vow renewal, even Margaret the cat cousin, who'd somehow scored an invitation and brought her new boyfriend. But Emma only had eyes for Daniel, standing at the altar in his navy suit, looking at her like she'd hung the moon. When she reached him, he took her hands, his own trembling slightly. "You look beautiful," he whispered. "You look pretty good yourself," she whispered back. The ceremony was a blur of traditional vows and personal promises. Daniel promised to always defend her honor at weddings. Emma promised to try to appreciate pineapple pizza. They both promised to love, support, and choose each other every day. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared. "You may kiss the bride." Daniel cupped Emma's face gently. "No more pretending," he murmured, echoing their first real kiss. "Never again," Emma promised, and then they were kissing, the crowd erupting in cheers. As they walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, Emma spotted two familiar faces in the back row, Jake and Melissa, looking uncomfortable but present. Emma had been shocked when they'd RSVP'd yes, but Daniel had squeezed her hand and said, maybe they need to see what real love looks like. Now passing them, Emma felt nothing but gratitude. If Jake hadn't broken her heart, if Melissa hadn't betrayed her trust, she'd never have been sitting alone at that table, never have met Daniel, never have found the love of her life. At the reception, Daniel pulled her onto the dance floor for their first dance. They'd chosen At Last by Etta James, surprising no one. "How does it feel, Mrs. Morrison?" Daniel asked as they swayed. "Like coming home," Emma said honestly. "How does it feel to you, Mr. Morrison?" "Like the beginning of our greatest adventure yet," Daniel said. "Smooth talker," Emma accused fondly. "You're smooth talker," Daniel corrected. "Forever and always." As they danced, surrounded by family and friends, in the same room where they'd first pretended to be in love, Emma marveled at how life worked. Sometimes the worst nights led to the best outcomes. Sometimes fake relationships became the most real thing in your life. Sometimes a stranger's whispered words could change everything. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel asked. "Just how glad I am that you're terrible at watching people suffer," Emma said. "Best character flaw I've ever had," Daniel agreed. The song ended, but they kept dancing, lost in each other as always. Around them, their guests celebrated. But Emma and Daniel were in their own world, a world that began with a whispered request and became a lifetime of love. Later, as they cut the cake, no pineapple, Emma had insisted, Daniel leaned in close. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For trusting me that night, for saying yes to a crazy plan, for being exactly who you are." Emma kissed him, tasting champagne and frosting and forever. "Thank you for asking." "I'd do it again in a heartbeat," Daniel said. "Good thing you won't have to," Emma replied. "You're stuck with me now." "The best kind of stuck," Daniel agreed, and pulled her in for another kiss as their guests cheered. And in that moment, in that same venue where two strangers had pretended to be in love, Emma knew that sometimes the best love stories were the ones you never saw coming, the ones that started with a whisper and ended with a promise, the ones that proved that love, real love, was worth waiting for, worth fighting for, worth everything. As the night went on, full of laughter and dancing and joy, Emma caught sight of their wedding favors, small cards at each place setting that read, "Sometimes love finds you when you're sitting alone at a wedding. Trust the journey." It was perfect. They were perfect. And this was just the beginning. If you enjoyed this story of unexpected love, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more heartwarming tales. Have you ever had a chance encounter that changed your life? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. And remember, sometimes the best things in life come from the moments we least expect. Until next time, keep believing in love.